A coalition of environmental, human rights and community organizations has submitted extensive comments highlighting significant issues with Tendele Mining's environmental impact assessment for proposed new mining areas in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, recently, the mining company started laying the groundwork for 3 new mines before the environmental impact assessment and public consultation process were finalized. Mfolozi Community Environmental Justice Organization has filed a series of court actions to halt these operations. Now, Peter Major, Director at Modern Corporation Solutions, joins us now via video link to just weigh in on this particular story. Mr. Major, thank you so much for your time. So, I mean, we know this country, of course, has seen many construction disasters where, in most cases, an environmental impact assessment was not done or was fast-tracked in some instances. Perhaps let's start there, just a brief understanding of the importance then of an EIA, in the context especially of mining projects.
Yes, the importance of an EIA is to let everybody know in advance what is going to happen and how it is going to affect them and the environment. And we can say 100 years ago, probably no EIAs were done. So if a person wasn't very aware and knowledgeable about mining, they could wake up with a lot of disasters around them with a lot of bad surprises. They could also wake up and have some good surprises. So EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment, that's to show everyone living close by, living far away, who might have some concern or something to do with the planned operation. It's to let them know this is exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to affect everything around them. So if I can say there's a key word here, it's called communication. Yeah. You can never communicate enough. And the mining companies have to do it, but the Department of Mines has to do it, and the community representatives have to do it. They all have a big, important role how to do this.
All right, let's look at then the issues that are facing this particular mine. I mean, Tendele is, as far as we know, a coal mine. Now, our understanding of, open cast coal mining is that together with gold mining in some instances, they are by far the largest sources of heavy metal pollution. I mean, what then, could be the potential environmental risks associated with Tendele Mining's proposed new mining areas?
Look, open pit mines, we all know, they cause 10 times the environmental damage of an underground mine. And they employ only 1/10 of the people that an underground mine does. So from my point of view, and I would think anybody reasonably logical living there, they would prefer an underground mine to an open pit mine because there's less of the negative effects on everything, and there's many more positive effects on an underground mine. But some of the reasons we don't have so many underground mines and we have more open pit mines than ever is our legislation and our government policy. Our government policy and legislation has changed so much the last 25, 30 years that it has driven away investment from underground mining and it has encouraged investment to open pit. And so money goes where money is wanted and money leaves when it's not wanted. This is why it's so important that the government looks at the legislation and the after effects that it entails, that it causes, because government has not done that. So if a community has a choice between jobs and no jobs, and they could choose an underground mine over an open pit mine, I think they would do it.
And I mean,
again, nobody wants an open pit mine next to them.
That is the worrying part about this, because as we understand it, the community is divided. I mean, we know, of course, on the one hand, Mfolozi Community Environmental Justice Organization has filed numerous court papers halting this process, or at least wanting to understand more. But on the other hand, as you say, there is that question, from other community members to say, well, hang on, what benefits can come out of these mines? But just from those legal obligations expectations and understandings, and I mean, we'll get to the legislative part in a moment. Just talk to us then about how a mine, in this instance, we understand that some groundwork has, already started without this IA. I mean, what are the implications here in terms of these legal processes that are currently happening? I mean, can they actually do that as Tendele Mining, start laying the ground in three areas we understand in this particular province?
If they don't have official permission, no, they can't do that. They would be like a zama-zama. But I've been on the side of mining companies, and I've been on the side of communities. And I can tell you now, what the legislation has done as far as enforcing communication, two-way communication, constructive communication, and compensation from the mining companies to the communities, it's groundbreaking. I think South Africa just about leads the world now as far as how much communication they force or require the mining companies to do with the communities. But when you live in a democracy, you can have 99% of the community think everything is okay, and 1% of the community doesn't think it's okay, and they can stop everything. So we shouldn't just say mining companies are doing things illegally. If you get permission from the government, the government agencies, and somebody later says that was illegal, well, who was illegal? Was it the government giving you permission? If I get a granted mining license, I've worked years. I spent all that time and money communicating, filling out all the applications, doing all the studies, and the government grants me that. Now, for someone to say, I am illegally mining, I am illegally proceeding, I don't think that's correct at all. And I hear that too often here when the mining company has complied in every possible way, but someone still protests and says, oh, they're doing it illegally, or it was an insufficient study. Who's the judge of that? Only the courts can judge that.
Very quickly, our time is fast running out, Mr. Major, but just one last question from me in as far as regulation is concerned, because on the one hand, South Africa's government can then allow and permit, the mine to go ahead given the regulations. But in as far as enforcement is concerned, particularly as it relates to those agreements between the mining companies and the actual community members, in as far as social standards are concerned, is there enough enforcement, following that particular, agreement and approval from government to say this particular mine is behaving in a way in which it should, and it is actually adhering to those social standards?
Nadi, you have hit the nail on the head. I think it's the enforcement part that the government has really fallen down on. It's the enforcement part where the communication is not good. Too often we see the wrong enforcement or minimal enforcement, and then the Department of Mines says, well, that was up to the police, or it was up to the environmental minister instead of the mining minister. Yeah. It's allocating who should be enforcing this, and we have to follow up because I find the enforcement is where it falls down. The EIAs are usually done pretty correctly. The communication both ways with the mining companies and community before mining starts is usually done pretty well. But for government to enforce their regulations equally, fairly, timeously, that's where we do fall down, without a doubt.
Peter Major, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Of course, Peter Major is a director at Modern Corporate Solutions. Of course, talking there about this particular mining company, Tendele Mining, and the environmental impact assessment processes there. It has already started groundwork for 3 mines in KwaZulu-Natal. I suspect we'll hear a lot more about this particular case.